Hi, my name is Kees, and I help people from doing to being. And today I'm here with part two with Floris van der Lee. Last time we talked about his journey into self-realization and just a more happier life in general. And he's a colleague. We teach a lot together and do events together. So I'd love to get his perspective. And one of the things he touched upon was his work at the beginning of his, you could say, awakening that there is more in life than um, just following the thoughts of our mind and sort of personal striving ideas or identity. And that was his visits to a psychologist to help him basically understand and be more conscious of what was happening inside him, what he was feeling, etc. Maybe you can describe it even better, um,
hmm
because he had three questions, right? Maybe to summarize.
Yeah, so to summarize the questions, that there were four questions.
Oh, four. Sorry.
It always started with a certain situation that triggered me, and the question was so the questions were hindsight questions to reflect upon the specific situation. Question one was what did you think of it? Question one was how do you feel about it, or how in hindsight how did you feel about it? Question three was how did you act? So how did you react upon the situation? And question four was, if you could, let's say, relive that situation, how would you how would you have preferred to react to that situation if you would have given a second chance? Um, so that was, let's say, the main questions to provide me the lessons in life necessary to move on. um, yeah, and that was I got a manual for self exploration. I think that was what I was offered by the psychologist, and he just guided me along the process and let me enjoy and suffer while walking.
Yeah.
um, and I think also to continue upon it, is I grew more and more aware and conscious about, let's say, my operating manual in life. So I started to see and acknowledge patterns which I had ingrained, enforced, and just repeated over and over again in life, to such an extent that I did not even think um, about them anymore. So they were so unconscious that it was time for me to make them conscious again, and to actually ask myself, or give myself the opportunity, what do I think of this pattern? Because that was, let's say, I think the underlying meaning of self-exploration. Um, and what
Great.
it's
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, so I wanted to let's say continue on it. So
Go for it.
I realized that by exploring all these patterns, that grew more and more conscious, the conditions, etc., that I was living my own I was living in my own bubble to deal with life. So that's, let's say, the glasses that we use to look at the world, but they're also the glasses that we use to interpret whatever is happening in the world. Um, and I think to introduce, let's say, the word that we discussed often on a personal level, is that I talked about my own, let's say, dome, my dome where I was living in, that had very clear boundaries. And I was living in my own self-created, let's say, Truman Show,
Mhm.
where I was able to control my life according to my patterns and my conditions. And they felt really comfortable while I was still in my unconscious spirit. So while I was still surviving, in trying to deal with life, and whatever challenges life was giving me, um, yeah, and that's I started to explore my own, let's say, bubble and my own dome until I was able, let's say, to see what was actually how I was actually creating my own world within the let's say the environment or the reality that I was living in.
And how did you, because we talked about just before we started recording, we talked a little bit about a moment you had outside of the church in Haarlem, that you were walking around the church and you had all these big questions coming up. Um, can you tell a little bit about how that, like, what 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 that moment in time, which was a huge awakening moment for you, was that after the psychologist or was it before the psychologist? And what happened in that moment for you? Could you describe that?
Yeah, so I would describe it as two parallel paths or two parallel trajectories that were going on. And let's say path one was triggered and motivated by pain. So that was, let's say, the on a unconscious level, I was, I think, quite aware that my patterns and my conditions were very limiting, because they were giving me limitations to the way I could deal with life. And this path of pain also brought me in many situations in life where I experienced more pain. Pain creates pain, let's say. And it also brought me to the psychologist and to this explorative path to essentially explore my own pain and whatever's limiting me, creating this pain. The alternative pathway was how I would describe it, similarly unconscious at that time, but it was based on, I think, or motivated, driven by love and inspiration. And those were the questions that were what people would say the big questions in life, the essential questions. Who am I? What is my purpose? Why am I here? How does the universe work? Um, um, is it really true that I exist on this planet, which already exists for 4.5 billion years, and my contribution to this planet is a mere, let's say, average 80 years? Questions like this. And while my pain was still on the foreground, there was, let's say, little space, time, and attention for the questions that arose from love and inspiration. But while the world of my pain and my patterns and my conditions became more and more clear and apparent, I started, let's say, spending less time and energy on that because I grew more and more aware of it. And let's say simultaneously, the softer voice of love and inspiration was able to, let's say, permeate the thick layer of pain, or let's say the layer, yeah, that was becoming less thick. And
Really?
this moment of the church that you refer to was the moment, I think, where I experienced the let's say the outer layer of my dome, my dome of limitation, where I actually I think I had the insight that I was my own limitation, and that the limitation, let's say, I allowed myself to live in that dome, and that dome, there was no opportunity to live outside of it, because that was the unknown world. It provided insecurity, it provided a lot of challenges of the unknown. That was, let's say, the outer limit of my mind, the outer limit of my rationale. And the questions that arose from love and inspiration actually did a kind and patient invite to see the outer layers of that dome, and to also show that there is a world outside. which is not limited but unlimited.
Mm.
And that moment around when I was walking in the church was the same questions popped up again. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What do I have to contribute to other people, to life, to this world? And that's where it sank, and I mean sank with a capital S. So it was, let's say, a truth bomb dropped from heaven, telling me that this was the time to listen more to that voice that was coming from love and inspiration. And that was the time where I knew that the old path, or let's say the path that was known to me, which had helped me a lot over all those years, that it was also time for an alternative way, an alternative path to walk. And I think it was so profound that it was just absolutely clear to me.
Mm.
And that those questions,
Yeah.
that those questions deserved my full attention.
Okay.
Because at first I was trying to answer those questions using, let's say, the limitations of my dome, to just refer back to the metaphor. But I was searching all my life within the dome, and there were no answers. So it was almost like at the end of the Truman Show, where he found the edge of the artificial world he was living in, standing on the stairs with the door in his hands. And let's say the program directors and all the people told him, don't do it, don't step outside. And that was my mind telling me not to step outside because it's so safe inside, because everything is known inside the dome. And that the why it was profound is that when I heard the questions from love and inspiration, I knew it is time to explore the world outside the dome, because that's where I will find all the questions, all the answers to my questions. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How would you answer those questions right now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Who am I? I'm everything and nothing. What's my purpose here? Yeah, good. My purpose here is to share this, to share what I'm sharing now with you. To make people aware in a loving and accepting and open way that there is an alternative to living life in the dome, let's say. So
Nice.
Yes, that there is an alternative, because I also see with people around me, with friends, with family, is that there are many of them are still unconsciously stuck within the dome suffering. But it also has, let's say, a time and place to be able to have that same profound, truth bomb, I guess.
Yeah.
To be able to make that leap of faith and to explore alternative models of living. And when it concerns, is my life limited to 80 years? No, of course not.
And how would that Floris at the church reflect on you saying this right now? Because that's quite a big statement, huh?
He's a loony.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, go your question. Do your question.
Yeah. So maybe for people that are watching this that just went, he's everything and nothing. What did that mean? Could you explain a little bit about what you mean with that?
So let's start from the old model. So the old model is where I place a lot of emphasis and importance and a lot of value on, let's say, me being an individual, being a separate entity from everything around me. And that I have a certain character, and that this character and this personality and these traits are a logical effect of my history. So the things that happened to me in life, where I was born, how I was raised, etc.
Yeah.
And of course, how we look at life, that's very logical. But it's also, let's say, from an individualistic point of view, when it concerns identification, it's also a very limiting approach to life. It places importance on the past to still have an effect on the present and the future. And it suggests that, I think what separates us from other mammals is that we have memory and we have brains that are highly developed to organize, plan, schedule, and remember things.
Yeah.
And we apply it on a daily basis to reinforce everything that happened before. And I think that's when you lose flow, flexibility, freedom in going whatever life gives you at a certain moment in time, which is always now, of course. So whatever is presented to me now is something I have to, let's say, not have to, but is something I can flow with, because it is intended for me, let's say, to be presented to me, and I can just go with it. Along when time passes. So this model is very complex because I need to uphold my character. I have a certain commitment to my identity, and I cannot disappoint my identity. Otherwise, my identity will not last or will not survive. But it also felt very uncomfortable. So it felt very uncomfortable because I realized I was showing certain emotions or not showing certain emotions or traits that I felt on a deeper level were actually not me. They were little parts of other people that I carried around within myself, that I've had identified myself with over those years, and I was holding on to them by dear life to make sure that they could still be, let's say, shown in the world. And it not only cost a lot of energy, but it also felt really unauthentic or not authentic. So I think that was the old model that I knew on a deep level did not work. And at first, so when coming back to your question, everything and nothing, I realized that when it concerns being in contact with myself, I love to get in touch with my body, because I realized that my body, I'm in good contact with my body, and it tells me a lot. But let's say it's easy for me to hear the truth from my body. And I started to explore how I came to be. And I don't know which guru it was, but Floris, let's say, the name that this physical representation, this host, let's say, the name that it was given, is actually built up from all kinds of pieces of non-Floris. Because Floris came into existence by let's say my father and my mother each giving a semen and an egg, they came together. And then as long as my mother was eating enough, the stuff that she put in my mouth, from that I grew. And that's how we grow. We grow from the things that we eat, from the things that we absorb in this world. So that was the first realization, that I was born from this world, literally, physically born from this world. So therefore, I already had a continuous connection with the world. I was not separate because I was highly dependent on the world. And I think it was also you that mentioned to me that our cells in our body regenerate every 5 years. So that means that as long as I eat, which we all need to do, I regenerate. So with everything I put in my mouth from this world, or from this planet, from this earth, I use it to regenerate myself, which again emphasizes that I'm not disconnected or independent from this world, and therefore other people, trees, etc.
Yeah.
And I think what we often miss is the importance of, let's say, the consciousness of breathing, which breathing means that, just as we often say, the fish is not aware that he's in the ocean. We are not aware that there's air all around us, because let's say, we cannot see it, but it is, let's say, our primary source of life. And I did a thought experiment, and I created a very simplified world for myself, where there was only one person, me, and one tree. And we lived in this one world and one tree, and let's just assume that with my carbon dioxide, I can let the tree live, and the tree with its photosynthesis can make me live. So we have each other to keep each other alive. And then it means, what I realized is, when I'm not here, the plant cannot live. So I'm important, because without me, the plant or the tree cannot survive. But I also realized that when the tree is not here, I cannot survive, which means I'm not all that important, because I need the tree to be able to physically survive in this world. And that was, let's say, a physical approach to, I'm everything, I'm important, and I'm nothing, I'm not important.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. And that's, let's say, the physical side of things. And then, of course, you can also, the physical side I like the most, because it's, let's say, the most approachable for the mind, let's say, yeah. And then, of course, you can also go at it on a mind level, a feeling level, energy level. And then, let's say, on an experiential level, that I can feel that I'm life itself. And when somebody would ask me, can you put that in words, that I still find it very difficult to give words to that.
You just did in a
yeah.
way.
Thanks.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, and what maybe, so you had the moment at the Dome, was that, and you had the psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and what was, let's say, and what was your journey between the answer you just gave? Can you describe a little bit, because just practically, you know, what phases you went through between that, because it's to ask who am I, and to have an answer I'm everything and nothing. I can imagine there's quite a timeline between that.
Yes. So there were actually, when I was referring to the parallel pathways, they offered, let's say, a pathway from pain and lack, and a pathway from love and inspiration. Let's for simplified, let's just simplify it like that. it offered me two tracks to live life. And what I mean with that is that how do I stand in life, let's say, and how do I approach life, and how do I respond to life? And with life, then I mean everything that happens at this moment around me and with me. And what happened after that was, let's say, a continuous switching and exploration of living with the possibility to choose between those two paths, those two alternative ways to live from. And in the beginning, let's say roughly, I was still aware of this path of pain, and I was also aware of the path of love and inspiration, but I was not yet able to, or let's say, to live from the path of love and inspiration required a lot of attention, consciousness, meditation as well, because the pull to still live from pain was the thing that was conditioned very hard, in a sense that the fundament was still there. And
that's
I think
from the dome. That's the pain.
Yeah.
That's pain. That's living from your, let's say, your limitations, your beliefs, your from the
Exactly.
dome, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Your conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was also about, let's say, exploring the fundament of why I was still drawn back to the dome. That was necessary. So exploring what was the connection, or what was the pull that I received to fall back, let's say, into, or in a metaphorical way is to say to be pushed away from my core, from my center. Why that happened so often. And yeah, that's I think I would like to say that that's then some kind of deeper or second layer of pain and suffering, because then you go more in depth. So at first my look and my attention was often pointed outwards, because I was looking and I was trying to find my answers in the outside world. Am I enough? Do I deserve love? Am I worthy of love? Am I worthy in general? And now I realized that I was looking for those answers outside of myself, because the limitations, let's say the fundament of my dome, were blocking me to move inwards. And let's say the painful part was to have the attention directed inwards, and it invited me to have a look at those limitations, because those limitations were the limitations holding me back to live from love and inspiration. So let's say from the moment of realization, when I was walking near the church up to now, let's say that has been the change of direction, of attention, from moving it outwards and moving it more inwards. And to see what was there all along. I mean, I was just running away from it, let's say, looking away from it, not pretending it was not there. But with this found realization or awareness, I also knew that the pain of, again, pointing my direct attention outwards was greater, and offered me less comfort to a certain extent than directing my attention inwards, looking at limitations and actually exploring them. Even though exploring limitations and being accepting towards limitations is a painful process or a suffering process in itself, but there is always reward at the end. Yeah. And the reward is not when I point my direction outwards, because then I was trying to look for confirmation, for love, from other people, which also included the energetic expectation of please see me and please acknowledge me for the love that I cannot give myself. Here you have the responsibility of giving me, let's say, the existential love and confirmation that I cannot give myself. I mean, that's something that I realized that it's unreasonable to ask anybody, even your loved one. it's not the purpose of another person to give me the love that I can only find with myself.
Yeah.
So there was always disappointment when I would take that path. So on the short term, it felt comfortable because I did not have to look inside. But there was always disappointment at the end because I would never find, and I knew I would never find my answers, my recognition, my confirmation, etc.
It's interesting because I think I've more and more have the idea that it's basically not that there is no sort of outside love, you know, especially from a non-duality perspective, but that the love we give or the love we expect from the world is the love that we're missing inside for ourselves, and that there is actually no outside love to be received if that love isn't there. So if you love yourself, then others sort of act accordingly, and if you don't love yourself, others act accordingly. Sort of the
Exactly.
world is more of a reflection, I feel, of you than that is actually a different thing that is that can treat you wrong or something like that.
Yeah.
Because if you feel good, people tend to be nice to you.
Exactly, and I think it's also about, let's say, the energy that you send out, the frequency, etc. And if you are in a place with yourself that you can live on a loving frequency, let's say, then it's also very appealing for others to join you on that frequency, I guess. And I think I also realized that when I was not in a place where I could give myself love, that the neediness of receiving love, so it was almost a necessity. It was actually, let's say, even though I was looking for connection and looking for receiving love, by, let's say, the desperation that was almost behind it, I think it more caused me to push people away from me instead of inviting them towards me. And I think I agree with what you say. I mean, if you are in touch with your inner love, which I think is always present, then you can, how to say, find peace and rest there. And then there's less incentive or necessity to move outwards and to have expectations of love towards others.
Yeah, it's a sort of it's also a sort of blame game, right? Where if you blame the other person, and in this case, if you blame the world, what you're actually doing is you create suffering within yourself, which you'll feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so what is love? Of course, it's just a label, but you can feel bad if you sort of have the idea that the world doesn't love you, or that you're not appreciated, or yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that also provides us with, I guess, it's both very subtle and very unsubtle, the potential to receive the lesson that the love cannot be obtained outside of yourself, because there's disappointment. Sooner or later there's disappointment because it's not to be found outside. it's just let's say a reminder for yourself to reflect upon yourself and have the attention directed inwards. Yeah. That's the beauty of life. If you're willing to open your eyes. Yeah.
Okay, and so do you have any closing thoughts or any idea where you feel that this journey has led you, it will lead you, sort of, I don't know, that's not really a proper sentence, but do you have any closing thoughts for the people watching this video?
I think what were the most important lessons in life for me is to do less and to let things be. To trust that whatever comes on your way, on your path, is coming at the right time in the right place. And with doing less, I mean, let's say, the conditioned drive or the conditioned belief, I think, that we need to do things to achieve something, or that the current state is not sufficient. The current state is that you lack something and that you need to obtain or achieve something. Let's say go from -1 to 0 or even +1, and that there's something you need to do about it. Because most of the times it's about the thing that you already do that is causing you to reaching a state of -1. So there's actually, before you have the, let's say, the tendency to do something to compensate for something else, that something else is already something you do, most likely unconsciously, that brings you from +1 to -1. So do less, it works for me. And so I often ask myself the question when I feel a feeling of, or a sense of being uncomfortable, I ask myself, what am I doing? So what am I doing on a deeper level? Am I trying to compensate? Am I seeking love? Am I feeling unworthy of myself? And do I now want to hear from my wife or from my kids that I am a good husband and a good father? So these questions help me a lot to just, let's say, give myself that space of awareness. Yeah, I think that would be a nice closing.
Great. So I'll send some links. I'll put some links about you and your teaching and everything that you're doing below. And of course, we have an event coming up together at the 19th of September. We'll link it as well, where we'll talk about letting go of these limitations, basically enlarging the dome, freeing up some dome space, and being able to step outside it. And we'll have more events coming in the future. So look out for that. And thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Floris, for being here and letting me interview you. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome, Kees. It was my pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.